Hi everyone, welcome to my channel, Tutorlini Test Prep. Today I will be providing a full walkthrough of the Digital SAT Math Linear Test Unique number 1. Quick disclaimer, this video will cover the linear non-adaptive SAT practice test found on College Board's website. Many of the questions from these tests are duplicated in the Bluebook app, which I have already covered in previous videos. This video will only cover the unique questions, so there are no repeats. A link to the Linear Test Unique PDFs will be in the description. I highly recommend you complete the questions yourself before watching this video. Let's get started. Okay, let's see. First question. Okay, so right away, I see this. It says a maximum of $75. So a maximum, that's like pretty much saying like at most $75. And a maximum of or at most, those are both synonymous with less than or equal to. Now, unfortunately, as you can see, they kind of all have less than or equal to 75. So that doesn't really help us narrow it down, but it's still kind of important to understand those keywords and which keywords go with which inequality symbol. All right, so it says a $25 service fee, so that's like a flat fee. And then we have a $10 per hour. So per usually indicates like we have some kind of slope. So this cost is like a linear function, mx plus b. Instead of x, we have t for time. Our m is the slope, which is the part before the per hour. So that's 10. And then the $25 service fee, that's your flat fee, which acts like a y-intercept. So that's 25. So this should be 10t plus 25 is less than or equal to 75. And you see that's pretty much the same as d. The only thing they did differently is just for whatever reason they put the flat fee first. Addition is commutative, so you can do that. So you got to know keywords that go with inequality signs. And then when you have like a linear word problem, normally the number associated with like the word per or the word each, that's a rate. So that's your slope, your m. And something that's just like an upfront fee, we call that in America, we call that a flat fee. That is your y-intercept. So that goes where b goes. So let's just check. First one is D. Good. What is the value of f of x when x equals 4? So it basically wants us to make x 4. So we're going to do f of 4 equals 7 and replace all the x's with 4. So plus 2. So 7 times 4 is 28. So f of 4 is equal to 28 plus 2, which is 30. So our answer is 30, which is correct. And I want to point out, you also went over this one of my other videos. You could type in the equation and then put f of 4, and that will give you 30, which is what we had. All right, let's keep going. Assignment's worth 70 points. Okay, so that kind of makes sense. It has all these equal 70s over here, so that kind of makes sense. So that's not really any different in any of them. So let's try reading the rest. We have questions worth 1 point, and that's represented by the number of those is represented by x, and then we have questions worth 3 points, and the number of those is represented by y. Okay, so like for example, if I got 5 3-point questions right, that would be 5 times 3, which is 15. So hopefully 15 points total. So hopefully you're kind of seeing, oh, we're going to have to multiply these guys together. So 1 point per question times the number of those questions, which is x, plus 3 times the number of those questions, which is y, gives us 70. And we don't write 1x, we just say x. So you never write x as a coefficient, it's implied. So we get x plus 3y equals 70. So if you're ever confused on which is answer choice D. So if you're ever confused on like, oh geez, what do I need to do with these numbers and symbols? Try to come up with a simpler problems like I did over here, like five 3-point questions. You can kind of use your intuition and go, oh, that's probably going to be 15 points. And then you go, wait a minute, how did I get that? I multiplied. And then that'll tell you to multiply when you do the rest of the problem. All right, let's keep going. There's a lot of questions. For some reason, there's a lot of questions on test 1. So we have to try to keep moving. Okay, so similarity statements. I've talked about this a lot in my other videos. The order of the letters tells you which angles are equal. So we don't even need this for all the questions, but angle L goes with angle P, they're both first. Angle M goes with angle Q, they're both second. And angle N goes with angle R, they're both third. So this one tells us that angle M has a measure of 53. So if angle M equals angle Q, and angle M has a measure of 53, then angle Q must also have a measure of 53. Again, they give you this nice sentence where 1.9 is B. They give you this nice sentence where they like explain to you what the similarity statement means, but like you don't even need to read that. You can just, again, pay attention to the order of the letters like I did. So see how L and P are both first, they go together. M and Q are both second, they go together. And N and R are both third, they go together. All right, system of equations. So we'll do it by hand first, then we'll do it using Desmos. So I have a letter by itself already, y. That's called a loaner variable. Got him by himself. So we're going to use substitution. You could do elimination, but I feel like substitution is easier for this one personally. So we're going to substitute this guy into where he is in the other equation with what he's equal to, which is this guy. So 4x plus negative 3x equals 15. So see how I just wrote the second one, but instead of writing y, I wrote negative 3x. So whichever one's by itself, you take it and you plug it into the other equation. All right, 4x plus negative 3x, that's just x, 1x, which is 15. And that is answer choice C. And let's check, that's right. Of course, any system, I made a video on this in my Desmos course. You can just type in any system and then just zoom out, see where they meet, click on it. And x, you can see x is 15, y is negative 45. So whichever way you prefer. All right. Party hats and cupcakes. Each package of party hats costs $3. Okay. So I'm going to call the number of party hats P and the number of cupcakes C. And the party hats, P party hats, they cost $3 each. And the C cupcakes, those cost $1 each. So very similar to the one we did before. To find the total cost, we do the number of that thing times the cost per single item. So if I bought like 4 hamburgers for $6 each, that would be $24. Multiply them together, right? So we're going to do 3P plus 1C. And again, we don't write 1C. We just put that as C is equal to the total, which is $71. Now it says if we bought 10 packages of party hats. So that's telling us that P is equal to 10. So we're going to plug that in. 3 times 10 plus c equals 71. And we get 30 plus c equals 71. And now we're going to subtract 30 from both sides. And we should get c equals 41. So 41 cupcakes. And that is correct. Great. So it was really important that you knew how to translate the words to the math in that first step. You can just use X and Y if you want, but you're probably going to have an easier time following along if you use letters that, start with the thing in the question, right? So for party hats, I used P, or you could use H for hat. And C, I used for cupcakes. Great, let's keep going. Okay, what is one of the solutions to the given equation? Okay, so what we're going to do is, this is called, if you want to look it up on Google or Khan Academy, this is called factoring with a equals 1. And this shows up a tremendous amount on the SAT. Factoring quadratics with a equals 1. So essentially what you're going to do is, if it's all right, I'm just going to change it to x's just to make it easier for me to write. Doesn't matter. So what you're going to do is, when a equals 1, in the front seat, we put an x, because x times x is x squared. And now to figure out what goes in the other two seats, you're going to look at these numbers. Make sure you include the negative sign. You have to come up with two numbers that add to 10 and multiply to negative 24. So I like to make, once you do this many times, you can just do this in your head, but I like to make a little cross over here. So it has to add to 10 and multiply to negative 24. So you kind of just have to start brainstorming factors of 24. So like 1 times 24, 2 times 12, 6 times 4, 8 times 3, all that stuff. And then think what kind of variations, positive or negative, will give me a sum of 10 and multiply to negative 24. So let's see. So for this one of them's got to be positive, one of them's got to be negative. So I'm pretty sure it's 12 and negative 2. So 12 times negative 2 gives me negative 24, and then 12 plus negative 2 gives me 10. So that seems right. So we're going to put plus 12 in the first one, and then minus 2 in the other one. Now, whenever you have factors set equal to 0, we're going to do what's called the zero product property. We're going to look at each factor, we don't care about the exponents or anything, just whatever's inside the parentheses, and we're going to set them equal to 0. So x plus 12 equals 0, and x minus 2 equals 0. Subtract 12 from both sides, we get x equals negative 12, and then add 2 to both sides. On this one, we get x equals 2. So this is called factoring with a equals 1, and then solving equations using factoring. Great. That looks right. Let's see. The two answers for 1.14 are negative 12 and 2. Looks good. So on the actual test day, I would just do what I went over in the Desmos. It's called solve most equations fast. You can just do this. So x squared. You got to know how to factor to solve harder problems, right? So don't just gloss over it. But on actual test day, I would just do this. Zoom out. Okay. Click, click. Negative 12 and 2. Takes like less than 5 seconds. So great. All right. Went over that in a Desmos video recently. You should check that one out. Okay, see how there's a number in front? This guy wants us to, this is now, it's not factoring quadratics. This is factoring out a GCF, greatest common factor. This is going to be kind of hard to teach in like, a minute, but you can find plenty of videos on this on Khan Academy and on YouTube. Factoring using greatest common factors, or GCF. If you just type in factoring GCF. So first let's look at the number part, 6 and 12. What's the greatest common factor? Well, 12 goes into 12, but it doesn't go to 6. 6 goes into 6, and 6 also goes into 12. And you can't have a bigger factor than that because you're not going to have, you can't have a number bigger than 6 that goes into 6. So whenever one of them goes into the other one, the GCF for the number part is the smaller number. So 6 is one of the things we're going to pull out. That's the GCF, 6. And now we look at the letters to see what kind of letters they have in common. So they both have x's, and the highest power of x that they both have is 2. So we're going to pull out x to the 2, and they both have y's, and the highest power of y that they both have is 2. They both have y to the 2, right? So now what you do is we're going to figure out what's left on the inside, you divide by whatever you pulled out is. So we're going to divide both of them by 6x squared y squared. Okay, 6 divided by 6 is 1. X to the 8 divided by x to the squared. We subtract when we divide. Rules of exponents tells us when we divide by a common base, we subtract. So it's x to the 6. And the y to the 2 goes away. And then plus 12 divided by 6 is 2. And then all this stuff goes away. X squared divided by x squared is just 1. And y squared divided by y squared is just 1. So we should have 6x squared y squared. I'm going to rewrite it just for the sake of it, making it neater for my notes. Great. So we should have, not that one, C. Great. So when you pull out a GCF, you can, the greatest common factor is the biggest factor that goes into both of them. And for this one, it's 6. And we can also, I think, verify that too. Yeah, there's a function, GCD, greatest common divisor. And then when you have powers, that's a little bit easier. It's just whatever the biggest power of x that goes into both of them. So for this one, it was x squared for the x's, and then for the y's, we pulled out a y squared. You also could have plotted these by like setting them equal to 0, or you could have plugged in numbers. Like you could have did like, okay, a or x1 equals 5, x or x1 equals 3, y1 equals 4, and then you could have typed in all these expressions, right? And then whichever one matches the one in the problem is right. So let's say like you got like 20, 15, 4, 20, 30, you know it's C, right? So even if you didn't know what to do, you could use the calculator to kind of guess and check. I haven't made a YouTube video quite going over that yet, but I intend to. I will at some point. It's just, I don't know. It's very, it's not as helpful as the other stuff. All right, great. We should move on. Okay. Which equation could represent this relationship? Okay, right away. I could just plot all these in Desmos and see if they're the same. So right away, I'm seeing the y-intercept is 40, and neither of them, which would be here, right? And neither of the slope-intercept ones have a y-intercept of 40. So I know those are wrong. Also, they have positive slopes and the line is going down, right? So A and C have to kind of be out. So we have to find the standard form using the two intercepts. So I'm going to use what's called two intercept form. So two intercept form is like this. It is x over a plus y over b equals 1. You don't have to know this. You could just pick points. I'm just trying to do it organically. So where a is the x-intercept and b is the y-intercept. So we're going to do x over the x-intercept, which is 60, plus y over the y-intercept, which is 40, equals 1. And now we're going to figure out the least common multiple of 60 and 40. It's 120. So we're going to multiply the whole equation to clear the denominator by 120. Okay, 120 times x over 60, 120 divided by 60 is 2, so that's 2x. 120 divided by 40 is 3, so that's 3y equals 120. And I see that both these guys have a 480, so I guess that's times 4. So for whatever reason, I don't know, let's just multiply the equation by 4. That's really weird. I don't know why they wouldn't put the whole thing in there. So we get 8x plus 12y equals 480. And that is answer choice B. Okay, myriad of ways you could have done this without doing it organically. Like that. So, let's check that that's right. 118 is B. Good. Okay, so first off, you could have just wrote down the points like 0, 40, and 60, 0, and then like plug them into every single problem, every single answer choice, and whichever one satisfies both is right. So if you plug in 0, 40 into the first one, I bet you it's not going to be on there, right? It wouldn't work. You would get like 40 equals 35 or 40 equals 90, you know, something like that. Also, right, you could just like type these in. I mean, I don't, right? Like, okay, A is wrong. Let's try C. Y equals 12x plus 8. Okay, that one's wrong. Let's try D. 12x plus 8y equals 480. And that has a y-intercept of 60 and an x-intercept of 40. So you see it's backwards, right? So let's try 8x plus, many ways you could have done this. Probably just plugging in the 2 points is the easiest. 0, 40, 60, 0. Great. So, looks good. So, yep, we could have just kind of guessed and checked on that one. Anyway, I still think two-intercept form is helpful. I remember there was a Blue Book question where using the Blue Book form was super helpful. Using the two-intercept form was super helpful. So, not something you necessarily have to know, though. All right. Frequency table. There's actually a way to do these on some physical calculators, like scientific and graphing. I'm not going to go over that, though, because I want you to understand. Oh, yeah, this also isn't even what I thought it was. It says, what is the maximum value? Okay. So the biggest value, so all you do is you look at this column, the value column, right? This table is basically saying there's 3 6s. 1, 2, 3. There's 3 7s. 1, 2, 3. There's 8 8s, etc., 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 right? So, all you do is for maximum, that's the biggest data value. So you look for the biggest data value. Just make sure it doesn't have a 0 next to it. So the biggest data value is 14. and there's 6 of them, so there must be at least 114. If there was a 0 there, the max would really be like 12, right? But biggest data value is 14, so the max is 14. Remember, the frequencies don't actually represent values, so a lot of people would have put 11, but you want the data value. And so 20. Okay, let me check. Gonna pause the recording 1 second. Okay, yeah, there was just one missing from the answer key. 14 is right. I'll fix it later. And if you wanted to know the min is the smallest data value as long as it doesn't say 0 as the frequency, right? So the smallest data value is 6. So it's like a deceptively easy question, I feel, right? Like people might just get caught off guard because they're like, min and max, what does that mean? Min is just the smallest number, max is the biggest number. So all you do is you pick out the smallest and biggest in the value column and just make sure there's not a 0 in the frequency. Because if, like for example, if we thought the max was 13, that can't be because there's no 13s. It says there's 0 13s. All right, great. Let's keep going. Okay, diameter endpoints with 2, 14 and 2, 4 and 2, 14. Okay, so those are both perfectly left and right. So to find if it's perfectly left and right or up or down, you just subtract. So left and right, we do right minus left. So the distance, which is actually the diameter, is equal to 14 minus 4, which is 10. So hopefully that makes intuitive sense. The radius, which we write as r, is the diameter divided by 2. So so it's 5. The r is 5. That's it. Yeah. If you want, you can just kind of verify this stuff for yourself by doing, why don't I call this west, and then east, oops, I was wrong. 2, 4 is south, and this guy is north. Doesn't matter. All right, great. So now I'm going to type in x minus 2 squared plus y minus 9 squared equals r squared, radius squared. So the center should be at 2, 9. Remember, we changed the signs of these guys. So the center is 2, 9. And x minus a squared plus y minus k squared equals r squared. Gone over that in many videos at this point. And r squared, so that should be 5 squared. And then let's put the center as well, which we just said is 2, 9. So you see we can kind of verify that our work is right. See how it perfectly goes through those 2 diameter endpoints that they gave us? So that means we did a good job. All we did was replace the 5, the r with the 5 that we found. So you could have done that. You also could have done that on here, right? Distance is between s and north. You get 10 and then divide by 2 and you get the radius, which is 5. Again, this one was probably easier to do by hand. Just trying to show you guys that Desmos you can at least use to quickly check that you did it right, right? You don't have to use it to do it, but you should probably use it to check that you did it right before you move on. All right, great. Okay. Okay, I just made a really, really long video about this. This is in the Ottocento course. I'm going to try to link it in the video at this time if I can figure out how to do that. So it's called Square Unit Conversions. In my unit conversions video, it's Ottocento number 2. And we're going to write 4.36 square miles, which is just miles squared. And we realize that there is no miles squared in the unit conversion. So we have to change the conversion factor to match that unit. How we're going to do that is we're going to square both sides of the conversion factor. Now we can distribute. 1 squared is just 1, so we get 1 mile squared is equal to 1760 squared yards squared. So see how we're squaring both the number and the unit. So make sure you do that. Again, 1 squared is just 1, so I don't need to write 1 squared. You could type in 1760 squared if you want before you continue, but honestly, it's probably just going to be more work. So many people would have just used the original conversion factor and they would have got it wrong. So now we can do the factor label method. I'm going to put one of these guys on the top and one of these guys on the bottom. I'm going to put 1 mile squared on the bottom and 1760, don't forget the squared yards squared on the top. Now I check if I look at opposite sides of the division sign, do I have the same unit? I do. Miles squared cancels. And now we're left with 4.36 times 1760 squared over 1. So now we just go to Desmos and we type that in exactly as we wrote it so that we don't make a careless mistake. Don't bother doing any of this math in your head. It's just going to waste time. All right, 4.36, 7, and then 1760 squared over 1. And that gives us 13505,536. So 13505,536 yards squared. So please, 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 guys, don't forget that really important step. I have a really long video on this with lots of practice problems via a worksheet. Please go check that out, Ottocento number 2. Answer choice D. Let's see. That is right. Great. Okay. Really tricky if you've never seen it before, but once you get the hang of it, it's not so bad. Okay, I remember this one being a little tricky. Line K. Okay, so this table is line H, so we should probably write that down. So this is H. And line K is the result of translating H down 5 units in the XY plane. Okay, let me just check something real quick. Okay, so I'm going to do this all by hand, then we can see if Desmos is helpful. So very first thing I'm going to do is whenever I find a linear function, we're going to do h of x. I'm going to find the slope, so we're going to use the slope formula, m equals y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. And why don't I use the first 2 points? So 160 minus 130 over x2 minus x1. Make sure you go in the same direction. 160 minus 130. And then 23 minus 18. You got to go the same way, otherwise it's not right. Okay, 23 minus 18. Gonna put that in a calculator, and I should get 6. So the equation is y equals 6x plus b. We don't know the y-intercept because they didn't give it to us. So there's many ways you could do this, but what I'm going to do now is I'm going to plug in a point and solve for b. So I'm going to do 18, 130. So 130 is y, 18 is x, And I get 6 times 18 is 108. Subtract 108 from both sides, and I get b equals 22. So this equation for h is y, or how about we call it h of x equals 6x plus 22. So now it says line k is the result of translating line h down 5 units. I have a hopefully kind of helpful video. I talk about this in my other videos, and I also talk about this in the Desmos function translations video. I wrote like a really short version on the top. G of x equals f of x minus h plus k. H is the amount you shift left or right. This one doesn't tell us to shift left or right, so h is just going to be 0, so we just don't care about that. And it tells us to go down 5. So left is negative for h, down is negative for k, so k is going to be negative 5. So k of x is going to be h of x minus h, we don't have an h, plus k. So plus negative 5, which is the same as minus 5. So now we just substitute. So h of x is 6x plus 22 minus 5. So k of x is equal to 6x plus 17. And now we are going to find an x-intercept. We always plug in y equals 0. For an x-intercept, you make y 0. And for a y-intercept, you make x 0. So k of x or y is going to be equal to 0. Subtract 17 from both sides. I get negative 17 equals 6x. And now divide both sides by 6. And I get x equals negative 17 over 6. That's the x-intercept. The only one that has that is D. Wow, that was a loaded question. Let's see if we can make that any easier by trying to use Desmos. So probably not going to be that much easier, but just to practice using Desmos. All right, so let's see. I'm going to make a table, and I'm going to type all this in: 18, 23, 26, and 130, 160, and 178. And I'm going to use regression, y1 tilde mx1 plus b. And they tell us that m is 6 and b is 22, which is what we got before, right? So let's write k of x equals, not k of x, h of x equals mx plus b, 6x plus 22. And now k of x, we're going to shift it down 5, so it's h of x minus 5, which is what we had on screen. Let's get rid of the red one because we don't care about that. And it says the y-intercept is negative 2.8333. So let's see what that gives us. Negative 17 over 6. Great, so that's really up to you what you think is going to be easier. Honestly, it's like I could see kind of both ways working. Some people are going to prefer to like put thoughts to paper, but some people are going to like having Desmos like next to the question as they work and being able to look at both at the same time and then kind of, you know, improvising as they see the graphs and the pictures and stuff like that. So whatever's easier for you, but that was the best way I could come up with to do it using Desmos. It was essentially skills from like 4 different Desmos videos all in that one problem. All right. Okay, intersects the line y equals c at exactly 1 point. Okay. There's a couple ways to do this, but y equals c, y equals number, that's the equation of a horizontal line. Horizontal lines, if they intersect at one point, they have to intersect at the vertex right there. So that y equals c has to be equal to, you could also use the discriminant. You could substitute and then use the discriminant if you want. I do that a lot personally. This is what you're supposed to do. So if we find the vertex, we're in business. So easiest way to do that by hand is to use the equation h equals negative b over 2a. So before I use it, I'm going to want to write down a is negative 1, ax squared plus bx plus c. So a is negative 1, b is 9, and c is negative 100. So let's see, negative b is 9, right? Over 2 times negative 1. And I get 9 over 2. And now we have to find the y-coordinate of the vertex. So to find the y-coordinate, we plug in the x-coordinate. So we're going to do, we're going to take this x-coordinate, and we're going to plug it in for x. So let's do that. So negative 9/2 squared plus 9 times 9/2 minus 100. And let's see what that gives us. So hopefully I did all that right. 9/2 squared plus 9 over 2. And I get, oh, also, did I check the last one? Was 24D? Yeah. Was 23D? Yeah. 21 was 5. Yeah, definitely check that one. Okay, good. All right, so I got K is negative 319 over 4. So this vertex is 9/2 negative 319 over 4. And as we talked about, y equals, so the horizontal line is going to be equal to the y-coordinate. So c is also equal to negative 319 over 4. Y equals negative 319 over 4 is the equation. So great. So we can do this one entirely on Desmos. Let's try it. So y equals negative x squared plus 9x minus 100. Let's see, zoom out. Okay, so I mean right away we already can see the vertex, and as long as you just recognize that it has to be the y-coordinate, you see that that's negative 319 over 4. But even better, if you didn't know anything, you could just type in the question, y equals c, and then I need a slider for c. Let me put a slider for c. I hope so. Is c a special letter? Don't tell me it is. Let me try d or something, or k. I don't know. It's not letting me add a slider. Hold on. Let me try again. Great. So y equals c, and you see it doesn't work, but let's see if I make it like, it's going to be down there, right? So let's try like 0 to negative 100. Oops, messed up. So negative 100 to 0. and then you can kind of start to see, wait a minute, it's got a touch there, and you can zoom in and make it a decimal and stuff like that, and but again, I think it's much easier if you just plot it and then go, oh, I bet it's negative 79.75. Let's try that. And it is. See, it goes right through there perfectly. Great. All right, let's move on. Okay, so for this guy, which of the following points lies on the graph of each equation? Okay, let me look this one over. Okay, so if you don't see it with your mind's eye right away, probably the easiest way to check to see how many solutions two linear systems in standard form have is by using what I have written on the board. So ax plus by equals c, dx plus ey equals f. Those are your two equations. If it has no solution, a over d equals b over e, which is not equal to c over f. A over d, for one solution, a over d is not equal to b over e. And for infinitely many, a over d is equal to b over e, which is equal to c over f. So 2 over 10, 3 over 15, 7 over 35. These all reduce to 1/5. So they're all equal. So this guy has infinitely many solutions. So that means these two guys are the same. So what you can do now is you can just pick one of them. I'm going to do the one with the smaller numbers. How about 2x plus 3y equals 7? You can go and plug in each answer choice and see, or if you want, you could pick a number for R. Maybe that would work too if you pick a number for R. So you go through each answer choice and plug it into one of the equations, and if it satisfies one of the equations, it satisfies the other one. So you just need to check to see if it satisfies one. So I'm not going to go through all these in the interest of time. The answer is B. So let's just at least verify that B is right. So 2x plus 3y equals 7. I'm going to put 2 times negative 3r over 2 plus 7/2 because that's the x-coordinate, plus 3 times r equals 7. So we get 2 times negative 3/2. That's negative 3r plus 7 plus 3r equals 7. And you see the negative 3r's and 3r go away. And we're left with 7 equals 7, which means it satisfies. So any value you pick for r will satisfy that. I'm trying to think. Well, first of all, right, it goes without saying that you could figure out that they are infinitely many just by plotting it. So let's do that at least. That's, of course, what I would do on test day. But they ask student-produced responses without the answer choices where you can't do stuff like that, right? So knowing that stuff I wrote on the board before is still important. Okay, so you see how it perfectly, the blue perfectly replaces the red? That means they have infinitely many solutions. So we're good. Okay, so let's see. Is there anything we can do with these guys? Here's an idea. I don't know if it's going to work. But why don't we make r like a real number? So like 4. Just arbitrarily. Let's do that. So I'm going to make r 4. And we're going to do negative 3/2, negative 3r over 2 plus 7 over 2. And then r is just 4. So the point is negative 2.5 comma 4, which as you can see is on the lines. So that probably would have been way easier than all this stuff the College Board explanation tells you to do. You could plug in like 4, 10 into all these and then plot all the points and then see which one lies on the line. I guarantee you if you'd put r equals 4 into these other ones and then plot it, it's not on those lines. So that's probably way easier to do than all this stuff we did off to the side. Anyway, cool. Wow, Desmos is really helpful. All right, 27. Perimeter of equilateral triangle is 624 centimeters. The height of this triangle is k root 3 centimeters. Okay, so there's a couple things you need to know about equilateral triangles. So I'll try to jot it down off to the side really quick. Let me see if I can pull this up too. So the it has all equal sides, and the perimeter would be 3s, and it has all equal angles. They're all 60, 60, 60, 60. So there's another thing you gotta know, and that is, I'm gonna draw a big one. If we drop a perpendicular, you can do whichever one, the left or the right one. I'm gonna do the left one. I like to do the left one. So they're all 60, right? And then this guy is 60. So these get cut into 2 equal halves. So that guy is 30. So it's a special right triangle. It forms special right triangle. So I'm going to draw it again, but just kind of keep in mind, oh, wait, something that I have to do when I see equilateral triangles a lot is I have to cut it in half. All right. So let me redraw it. Okay, so they tell us the height is k root 3. So let's label that. And the perimeter is 624. So if the perimeter is 624 and all the sides are equal, we can divide by 3 and we get what each side length is, which is 208. And each of these guys is half of that. So 208 divided by 2 is 104. You didn't need to know that, but you might for another one. Okay, so I'm going to pause the video really quick and pull up special right triangle from the reference sheet. Okay, great, we got it. So don't forget, guys, these are on the reference sheet in the top right corner of the Blue Book app. One of the only things on the test you don't need to memorize, okay? So please remember to check. Okay, so let's label them. So across from 30, that is x. So I'm going to put an x here. Across from 60, that is x root 3. And across from 90, that is 2x. Okay, so use whichever one you want. Why don't I do this one? So 2x is equal to 208. Divide both sides by 2. And we get x equals 104. So everywhere you go, x is 104. So that side's 208. And this side is, the height is 208 root 3, x root 3, 208 root 3. So hopefully you can kind of see that 208 is k. So k is equal to, oh, sorry, my mistake, not 208, it's 104. So you just hold up the pieces, figure out what x is, and then plug it in, and you get all the sides. That's how you work a special right triangle. So k is 104 because the thing in front of root 3 is 104. That is it. Great. Okay, let's keep going. Module 2. $P for every W hours of work. Okay, so this is like a ratios problem. So I'm going to put dollars on top and then hours on the bottom. So $P for every W hours of work. That's this part of it. And then 39W hours of work. Okay, so 39W. So we want to know what goes here. So why don't we call that X? You can cross multiply and everything, but hopefully we can kind of see that. You see this guy is multiplied by 39. So that means this guy is also multiplied by 39. So X is 39p. That is it. So see how on my scratch paper, I'm going to write the thing that goes on the top and thing that goes on the bottom and just make sure the whole time I have the thing I'm supposed to have on the top and on the bottom. All right. What is the speed and miles per hour of the car? 5 seconds. Okay, so t is the time. So t equals 5 seconds. So we're just going to plug in t equals 5. So s equals 40 plus 3 times 5. That's 40 plus 15, which is 55, which is answer choice D. Great. What is the y-intercept? Okay, so this is y equals mx plus b. So b is the y-intercept. X-coordinate of y-intercept is always 0, so it's 0, -2, which is this one. You also could have, when in doubt, if you didn't realize it was mx plus b, when in doubt, always, whenever you want to find a y-intercept, just plug in, or you could have, I'll just put or, plug in x equals 0. So if you plug in x equals 0, you get 1/10 times 0 minus 2, which is -2. Just remember 0, -2. If there was a 0 in the y spot, that's actually an x-intercept. So you see that's a trap answer. That's an x-intercept. So don't fall for that. Of course, we also could have plotted this and just clicked on it. So let's do that, just for the sake of practicing and checking to make sure we did a good job. Okay, so it says the y-intercept is 0, -2. And if we wanted to find the x-intercept, that is 20, 0. Great. Okay, so we want to remember this, what we're talking about before, guys, f of x minus h plus k. So we're not shifting it left or right, so h is going to be 0. So we can kind of ignore him. And we're shifting it down 2 units. So remember, down and left are negative. So down is negative, so -2, k is -2. Okay, so g of x is equal to f of x minus h plus k. Once again, we're not shifting left or right. Doesn't say to do that. So g of x is equal to f of x plus -2 or -2. Now we just replace f of x with 7x cubed, and we get g of x equals 7x cubed minus 2. And let's see if that's right. Yep. And you can, of course, I don't know how helpful it would have been for this one, but you could at least plot it to make sure you did it right. So let's do f of x equals 7x cubed. And then g of x equals 7x cubed minus 2. So see how that point in the middle went down by 2? We did a good job. So you could just make the picture and just be like, did it go down 2? Yes. Okay, I did a good job. Move on, right? Even if it doesn't help you solve the problem, helps you check your answer. Okay, great. So I'm going to, I see that this is a little unorthodox, but I kind of see that this guy is here. So I'm going to substitute this 10 in where the x plus 7 goes. So I get 10 squared equals y. So that's 100 equals y. Okay, are there any answer choices with y as 100? Yep, A. Great. Of course, we could have plotted these guys, so let's see if that works. Okay, so I'm going to zoom out. Seems like they cross up here somewhere. Seems like right there. Let's click on it. 3, 100. Great. Well, it took 2 seconds. All right. Okay, which expression is equivalent? This minus sign, you got to remember to distribute this. So change the sign of everything in the second parenthesis. So 7x cubed plus 7x minus 6x cubed plus 3x. Now we're going to combine the like terms. So 7x cubed minus 6x cubed, that's just x cubed. Already took care of those guys. And 7x plus 3x, that's 10x. So the answer is A. That is correct. You also could have done this one without knowing anything, just by graphing, using equivalent expressions for guess and check. So what you do is you type in when you just have x's, you can just type in the first one. And then you go through and type in all of them, and whichever one looks exactly the same as that is the answer. I'm not going to go through all of them. Let me just do the first one. So x cubed plus 10x. Ta-da! See how if I unhighlight and then rehighlight it, see how it perfectly replaces it? If you type in one of those other ones, that's not going to happen. So that'll tell you it's wrong. I have a video on this. Check it out in my Desmos course. Not very helpful for this one. This one you can do very quickly by hand. All right, what's the mean of these numbers? Okay, so mean is sum divided by n, where n is the number of data values. So there's 10 numbers, and now you got to add up all those numbers. So let's see, 6 plus 8 plus 16 plus 4 plus 17 plus 26 plus 8 plus 5 plus 5 plus 5. Get 100. 100 divided by 10 is 10. So the answer is 10, which is correct. Now, I made a video on this too, mean and median functions. So if you put mean and then just put a parentheses, you can type in the list. and it will, with commas in between them, just like it is there, tells me 10. We could also, very similarly, find the median of that list. And if I did that right, it says it's 7, which should be correct. Anyway, so don't forget, mean and median of a list, you can straight up just type it in, get the answer very quickly. All right, great. Okay, great. So whenever we have a times b to the x, a is your initial value, or your y-intercept. As long as it looks exactly like this, a times b to the x, which this one does, right? And b is your growth / decay factor, which is the number x, the y's are getting multiplied by when x goes up by 1. Well, they didn't ask us about that. We don't need to worry about that. They just asked us about the 5. As you can see, 5 is the number in front, which is our initial value, or our y-intercept. So the y-intercept is 0, 5. In this problem, the x, which is the number inside the parentheses, is t. And the y, which is the number in front of the parentheses in the function notation, is e. So x is t, y is e. So when t is 0, what does it say t is? Let's look. It says t is the number of years since the restaurant opened. So 0 years since opening, or in other words, when it opened, right? E is equal to 5, which is, it says the equation E of t, so it's talking about E, gives the estimated number of employees at a restaurant. So there's 5 employees. So let's see, is there an answer that sounds like that? The estimated number of employees when the restaurant opened. So this is all looking very good. I think it is A, and that is right. So the number in front is the y-intercept. We write it down. We figure out which letter goes with which number, and then we just interpret it based on what they told us. Very common question on the digital SAT. You definitely want to know how to do this. Remember, the number inside the parentheses, that's your input. That's your x. The number outside in front, that's your y. What is the minimum value of the given function? Okay, so this is standard form. So to find a, first of all, minimum, whenever you see quadratic and you see the word min or max, you should be thinking vertex right away, because the min or max happens at the vertex. So we want to find the vertex. So a is 1. There's a 1 in front of the x squared. B is 0 because there's no x term. C is 55. H is equal to negative b over 2a. So negative 0 over 2 times 1. That's just 0. And to find k, we plug in the x coordinate. So if you plug in 0, you get 0 squared plus 55, which is just 55. When they say, what is the minimum value? I went over this in my Desmos video, guys. When on min and maxes, when it says, what is the minimum, what is the maximum, it wants the y value. If it says, what's the x value where the function reaches its maximum, then it wants the x. But if it doesn't mention anything about x, it wants the y, okay? So, so this guy wants the y, which is b. Very good. And of course, we could just do this entirely. on Desmos. So the vertex is the point at the tippy bottom. Let's click on it. 0.55. So really the only trap answer people could fall for is they'd put 0. Right? So remember what I said. If it just says the minimum or max, it wants the y value. This question is asking for the y value. If they mention x, then maybe they want x. But if they don't mention x, they want the y value. Great, let's keep going. The population increased by 7% if the 2016 population is k times the 2015 population. Okay, so the new is k times the old. So they just want us to find the percent multiplier. And I just made a really long video on this. It's my Ottocento #1 on percents. Please check it out. I go over this in great detail. I'm not going to mention much here, but it says 7% increase. So for an increase, we do 1 plus the percent divided by 100 for an increase. For a decrease, you do 1 minus the percent divided by 100. So we're going to do percent multiplier equals 1 plus 7 over 100. This is really easy to make a careless mistake on, so I'm not going to do it in my head. I'm going to come over here and do, even if I already know what it is, just to be sure. And the percent multiplier is 1.07. So k is just equal to 1.07. So 2015 to 2016, whatever that is, it gets multiplied by 1.07. The only thing they could have done to trip us up is they could have, like, you know, put it the opposite way. But I knew it was an increase because it said increase, right? They could have maybe tripped you up and said, oh, from 2016 to 2015, what percent decrease is that? But this question is not trying to trick us in any way. So it's just testing you on, can you compute a multiplier? The definition of a question you want to get right. Does not take long. All right, so this one is C, which is right. Let's keep going. A to the 11 over 2. Okay, I'm going to pull up, put some stuff on the board. Give me 1 sec. Okay, so this is like fractional exponents and roots. You have to know that the bth root of x to the a is equal to x to the a over b. So let's start by doing square root of x. So if there's no power, that's a 1. If there's no number on the root, that's a 2. So this one is x to the 1/2. That square root comes up so often, you probably just want to memorize that. But again, I just wanted to show you so that you could kind of see where these other examples we're going to do come from. So see, the number here goes here, power, and then root. Power, root, power, root. Okay, let's do a couple more quick examples. So let's say I have the 4th root of x to the 5th. That would be x to the 5 over 4. And you have to know to go back and forth between these. And let's say I have x to the 3 over 7. That would be power root. So x to the 3rd, 7th root. So just make sure you know to go back and forth between those, and you know how to that when there's no exponent, we treat that as an imaginary, like 1. And when there's no number at the root, the square root is the 2nd root, 2. Okay, lots of people think that because there's no 2 there, that it's a 1, like the exponent. But no, square root of x is not x to the 1, it's x to the 1/2. All right, so now we just have to change all these and see which one matches. So this one is a to the 132 over 12. And I would just use a calculator to simplify these things. So this would be a to the 11. So that's not right. And let's see. This one is a to the 132 over 144. Let me show you guys just, you can do this on Desmos too. I'm doing it on my own calculator. Why don't I do the rest like this? 132 over 144, and then click on the fraction button. That's 11 over 12. That's the answer because it matches that one, right? Why don't we just do the rest of them? So this one is a to the 132 over 121. Let's see what that is. 12 over 11. And 132 over 11, that's just 12. So you see the only one that matches is B. And the other thing you could have done is even if you had no idea what was going on, right? You can guess and check using values, which is something I really should make a video about. It says A is greater than 0, so let's make A, I don't know, why don't I make A 8? So A to the 11 over 12, that's the original, right? Then you could type in 12th root A to the 132, and you see it doesn't give you the same thing. And then if you do A to the 132 but 144, oh, you see 6.72, we get the same thing. So you could have completely solved this question even if you didn't know any of it. Just pick a value and plug in. A valid value. It says A is greater than 0, so you have to pick and don't pick 0 or 1, pick 4 or 5 or something. 0 or 1 have a lot of special properties that can make it hard to narrow it down. All right, great. Let's keep going. We're doing good. Okay, a cost event planner one-time fee of $35. One-time fee, that's a flat fee. And $10.25 per attendee. Remember what we said, the flat fee is the y-intercept or the b, and the thing with each or per on it, that's your slope. So the cost is $10.25. Why don't I do A for attendees? So A plus 35. Remember, guys, y equals mx plus b. Very similar to I think it was the first problem in the video. Okay, so now it says the event planner has a budget of $200. So that means budget means you can't spend any more than $200. So it has to be at most $200, which we talked about before, is less than or equal to. So we're going to do 10.25a plus 35 is less than or equal to 200. This is a linear inequality. We're going to solve it just like an equation. 200 minus 35, so I get 10.25. A is less than or equal to 165. And I divide both sides by 10.25, and I get A is less than or equal to 16.09756. So we want the greatest number without exceeding the budget. So, it's not the same as rounding. Lots of people would say 16 because I rounded. No, you have to do the biggest number that satisfies the inequality. So it's 16. Let me kind of show you what I mean. Like if I had x is less than or equal to 12.9, lots of people would have said, oh, it's 13. Because they rounded, right? But 13 is not less than or equal to 12.9, right? So that doesn't work. The answer would still be 12. Isn't that strange? You have to kind of force yourself. You're so used to rounding, you have to kind of force yourself to be like, wait a minute. This isn't rounding. I want the biggest number that satisfies the inequality. So when you have less than or equal to, and it's a problem like this, you're going to round down in a way, no matter how big it is, because if you go up to the next one, it doesn't satisfy the inequality. So forget everything I just said. Just always check to make sure it satisfies your inequality. So I'm going to go, okay, 16 less than or equal to 16.09, blah, blah, blah. It is. Is that the biggest value there? Yes. So I did a good job. So always just check your work. So the answer is 16. I'm trying to see what else we could do here. If we could do this using Desmos, I mean you can. I don't really see how it would help. I mean, you can put this inequality in, and we can look at a nice picture. But yeah, see, I typed in the inequality, and I see 16.08, so it's got to be to the left of 16.08, so 16. So yeah, the typing in is helpful, but again, it's like it only helps so much because you still needed to come up with this inequality, right? Using the paragraph, which is the hard part. All right, enough time on that one. Let's keep going. Okay, cube has an edge length of 68 inches. A solid sphere with a radius of 34 inches is inside the cube, such that the sphere touches the center of the cube. What is the volume of the space in the cube not taken up by the sphere? Okay, so the sphere is inside the cube. I can't draw in 3 dimensions, but just picture a sphere inside a cube. So there's the equation for the volume of a cube, which is not on the reference sheet, which is so you're going to want to know it, is volume equals s cubed. That's for a cube. And then for a sphere, that is on the reference sheet. So let me pull that up. All right, great. So we have what we need. So the cube is inside the sphere, so we're going to find the volume of both of them. And then take away the volume of the sphere, and we'll kind of be left with that kind of like leftover space, if that kind of makes sense. So yeah, okay, so the volume of the cube is volume equals 68 cubed. So the volume of the cube is 314,432. You don't need to write out the numbers, but just for the sake of the video. And this one's going to be 4/3 pi. The radius is 34. Okay, let's see what that is. I would personally just simplify it in terms of pi, but some people might not like that, so I'm not going to do that. Do what you want. Okay, 16436. So we're going to do, let me jot that down. 1646.2. Okay, so now we're going to do the big thing, which is the cube. Minus 14975.8. So the volume of the space is the volume of the cube minus the volume of the sphere, which is about 149,796. Let's check to make sure that's right. 149,795.8. Yep. And that is answer choice A. Hopefully I did that right. Good. All right. So just, yep, 2 sometimes on SAT questions, you have to compute an area or a volume, and then you have to add or subtract them to find like the combined area or the the empty, like unshaded area kind of thing. What is the diameter? Okay, so the equation of this circle is x minus 5 squared plus y minus 3 squared. Or sorry, equation of a circle is x minus h squared plus y minus k squared equals r squared. So the very first thing is you want to find the center. You don't need it for this one, but just for the sake of practice. So we circle this one, and we circle this one, and we change the sign because there's minuses. So many people would say the center is -5, -3, but it's not. It's 5, 3. You got to remember to change that sign. Now the radius, this is the other thing people forget. You got to remember to, this is r squared, right? So you have to do the square root of whatever's number there, no matter how messy the number is. So the square root of 16 is 4. So the radius is 4. So they want us to find the diameter. Diameter is 2 times the radius. So we double it. Remember, we divided by 2 before. Now we're going to multiply by 2. So 2 times 4 is equal to 8. So the diameter is 8. Which is, for 23, is B. Good. And of course, we can verify that we did it right on Desmos. Let's type this whole thing in. Okay, great. So let's find the northmost point and the southmost point. The diameter is the distance between them. So why don't I write down north equals 5, 7. And then south is 5, -1. And the distance between them is 8. And if you wanted the radius, you would divide by 2. Great, so it seems like we did a good job. Okay, let's keep going. Okay, so it says f of 1 equals k. And it says, this is really important, all of these are equivalent forms. So that just means they're different ways of writing the same thing. So all you're going to do is randomly pick one and plug in 1. Because this is x, right? So f of 1. So you're going to pick a random function and find f of 1. So I'm going to do the first one. 50 times 1.6 to the, this is really annoying, guys. You got to put parentheses around it when you first type it. X plus 1, 1 plus 1. I get 128. You also could have just typed in any of them. And then did f of 1, which again is 128. So whatever works. That's it. That's the whole question. So f of 1 is 128. So k is 128. And it says, which of the following shows k? So all you do is you look at all these equations, see which one has a 128. Okay, C's got a 128. That's it. That's the whole question. So it's like, many people, they're like, what is this? They see this and they're like, what is this asking me? All it's asking you is to find that value, which normally isn't a lot of work, as you just saw, right? We just typed in the calculator. And figure out what that number is, and then see which one has that number literally on display in the equation. That's it. They like asking these a lot recently. Okay, this doesn't look fun. Okay, so all these answer choices, I can already tell, are a times b to the x. And remember all that stuff we talked about before, initial value, growth slash decay factor. So a lot of times in exponentials, the growth slash decay factor is a percent multiplier. Ah, it says 150% more. I went over this in the percents video, guys. I'm going to go over it more in my exponentials video when I make it. So b is a percent multiplier. So we have to do 150% more. So 1 plus the percent divided by 100. 1 plus 150 divided by 100. 2.5. So b is 2.5. Great. So right away, any answer choice that does not have b as 2.5 is wrong. So a is wrong and c is wrong. Okay, now it says the model estimates that at the end of 2016, there were 180 squirrels in the population. Great. So, many people would have read that, and they would have picked D. They would have said, oh, they started with 180. But that's wrong, because T is from 2015. 2015. So this says 2016. So that's, okay, 2016 to 2015, that's 1 year. So when T is 1, the squirrel population is 180. So what I would do now is to pick between B and D. I would just plug in both of them to see which one works. So if you do 72 times 2.5 to the 1, you will get 180. So you get 180 equals 180. But if you plug it into the bottom one, you get 180 equals 180 2.5 to the 1, which is 450, which is no good. So that one does not work. So it's got to be B. So you see, it's like everyone, they would have went, oh, 180's in front. But you got to pay attention to what the question says. Initial value, so it has to start at that year of 2015. It doesn't say 2015, it says 2016. And notice that we just did subtraction to figure out it's 1 year. If it was 2019, we would do 2019 minus 2015, and we would do 4 years. Great. So this one's testing you on mainly percent multipliers. Okay, I remember this guy. I'm going to have to take a look at it for a sec. Give me a second. Okay, so this one's it's not that fun. But first off, perpendicular lines. Talked about that in the 4th skills insight video, I think, or the 3rd one. They cross at 90 degrees, and the slopes are what's called opposite reciprocals. So you flip it and multiply by -1. So if the slope is 2/3, the perpendicular slope is -3/2. Flip it, multiply by -1. Something else that's really helpful for this problem is when you have standard form, or even like a quasi-standard form, the slope is equal to -a/b. We don't want to have to go and put all of these in slope-intercept form. That would take forever, right? So if we use m equals -A/B, it'll make our lives a lot easier. So the slope of this one is -5/7 A/B. The slope of this one is -a/b. Okay. So these guys are opposite reciprocals. So that means that the perpendicular slope of -5/7 is 7/5. So that means that 7/5 must be equal, because they tell us these two pairs of lines are perpendicular. That tells us that 7/5 is equal to -a/b. And if I multiply both sides by -1, I get a/b is equal to -7/5. Okay, so let's do this at the end, but I'm pretty sure we could just plug in numbers that work for a and b, and then like type them all in and see if they work. Let's try that at the end, but let's keep trying to do it organically. Okay, so we want to find which pair also represents perpendicular lines. Okay. So right away, hopefully you guys could agree with me. This bottom one is the same as the top one, but they changed the sign. So like the slope is going to be different for the first one, but the same for the second one. So like right away, I'm just kind of thinking that one's wrong without checking anything. And now let's go and check the other ones, which is kind of convenient because you see how they all have the same first equation. So let's find that slope for those three guys using m equals -A/B. So the slope for all of those is -10/7. So we're going to go through and we're going to see which one gives us that opposite reciprocal. So, okay, let's say here we have 2a/b. And again, the opposite reciprocal would be -10/7, so that would be 7/10. So this one is -2a/b, which if we use the ratio that we came up with would be, if a is -7/5, a/b is -7/5, and then we multiply that by -2, we get 14/5. So that is not 7/10, so I think that one is wrong. Okay, let's do answer choice A now. So this one is m equals -a/-2b, which is just a/2b, which, look at what we had before, that would be -7/5. So 7, but then it's 2b on the bottom. So 5 times 2 is 10. So that's -7/10. We wanted +7/10, so that's not right. So I bet it's B. Let's check. So we get m, I don't know, I'm just going to do this way over here. M is equal to -a/2b. So a/b is -7/5 times a negative makes that positive 7/5, and then times 1/2, 2 on the bottom, is 7/10. So see how we just replaced the a/b with -7/5, just like we've been doing this whole time. All right, so that gives us answer choice B. Wow, very confusing question. I hope I did that in the easiest way. Let's see if Desmos is any help. So we have 5x plus 7y equals 1. and ax plus by equals 1. And why don't we say, oops, we say a is -7 and b is 5. Boom, perpendicular. So now let's type in b and see if this works. Looks good. Looks really good. Wow, that was a really cool thing to do. Wow, so helpful. So I bet if you plug in the other ones, so let's do ax minus 2b. Let's do answer choice A. See how it's not perpendicular? It doesn't cross a 90. Right? So really good thing to do, if we were going to do this one using Desmos, would have been to be like, okay, let's make like one of them negative, one of them positive. A -7, b equals 5. Or you could do A is 7 and B is -5. And then plug into all those and just plot them and see which one looks right. That to me, so much easier than all this mental math we just did. Great, super duper. What a huge help that is. Okay, awesome. I think that's it. Okay, that completes the lesson. Please like and subscribe for more digital SAT math content. If you are interested in my tutoring services, the link to my website will be in the description. I tutor SAT math and all math subjects from about 7th grade to AP/early college level. Thanks for stopping by, and good luck studying.